Story number 1. The Roadside Warning, a Christmas Eve Encounter. Christmas Eve, the one night a year when joy blankets the world and homes overflow with warmth, family, and festive lights. But what if, beyond that warmth, beneath the falling snow, something sinister waits? Something that doesn't celebrate, doesn't forgive, and doesn't let go. This is the story of a Christmas Eve that became a nightmare. And it begins, not with a sleigh bell, but with a scream. My name's Lena Graves. I was 26 at the time, working the winter season at an insurance firm in downtown Portland. It was December 24th, 2022, a frigid, fog-covered Christmas Eve. My shift ended around 6:45 p.m., and I was one of the last stragglers out of the building. The office lights flickered behind me as I stepped out into a world blanketed in white. My family had already left for our annual cabin gathering deep in the Santiam Pass near Marion Forks, 2.5 hours away through mountainous terrain. I hadn't planned on joining them because of work, but something inside me shifted last minute. Maybe I just didn't want to be alone on Christmas Eve. So, after grabbing a quick bite from a 24-hour deli, I plugged the address into my GPS and started driving. The snow was light at first, almost calming, but that peace, it didn't last. By 8:20 p.m., I was deep into the backroads, winding, icy highways flanked by endless fir trees. Snowfall thickened fast, visibility dropping to mere feet. I turned off the radio. Every creak and whisper from my car suddenly felt loud, too loud. There were no headlights behind me, no signs of life ahead, just the soft crunch of tires over snow. That's when I saw them, flashing taillights up ahead, glowing like dying embers in the blizzard. A silver sedan parked on the shoulder, engine still puffing white breath into the cold night. A figure stood beside it, waving both arms. Urgently, jerky, like a puppet with broken strings. I slowed down and pulled off the road a few yards behind the car. The figure turned toward me, a tall man, lanky, wearing a long green parka with fur trim and jeans already soaked through at the cuffs. His face was red from the cold, eyes wide and glassy. He came walking up before I even opened my door. "Hey, thank God you stopped," he shouted over the wind. "My car's dead. Engine won't turn. Do you know anything about starters?" I hesitated. "Not really. I mean, I know how to jump it, maybe." He nodded quickly. Nah, it's fine. I just need someone to help check the back. I've got a battery pack in the trunk. Mind holding the trunk up while I grab it? The latch is busted and I can't get it to stay open." His tone was calm, but there was a twitch under his left eye. Something rehearsed in the way he spoke. Still, I followed him. I never should have. He popped the trunk. It creaked open, revealing a nearly empty space except for a few jumbled wires and a green tarp partially folded to one side. I reached to hold it open, still cautious. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind me, fast, crunching, aggressive. I turned just as he shoved me, hands cold and clawing. I screamed, hitting the inside of the trunk hard. He tried to slam the lid down, forcing it with all his weight. My legs flailed, my boots bracing against the rim. I screamed again, my voice muffled by the snowstorm. And somehow, through sheer panic-fueled adrenaline, I kicked with everything I had. The trunk burst back open. I stumbled out, fell to my knees in the snow. He lunged again, this time grabbing my shoulders, trying to pin me down. Instinct took over. I reached into my coat pocket, pulling out my house keys. With trembling hands, I jabbed wildly. One key sank into his neck with a sickening pop. He let out a guttural scream, raw, animalistic. Blood sprayed onto the snow like a crimson Rorschach blot. He collapsed to his knees, clutching the wound. His scream echoed through the silent woods, swallowed by wind and flurries. I didn't wait. I sprinted to my car, slipped once, then again, but somehow got inside, locked the doors, and peeled away into the storm. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. My pulse throbbed in my ears. I drove blind, tears mixing with sweat, the windshield wipers failing against the blizzard's fury. I called 911 through voice command. The operator tried to keep me calm as I gave coordinates and described the man. They told me to stay on the line, to find a place to pull over. I couldn't. Not yet. 10 minutes later, I passed a gas station with flickering neon. I stopped. Police lights arrived not long after, painting the snowy landscape in flickering red and blue. They found him still alive, barely, lying beside his car. There were ropes in his back seat, duct tape, a hunting knife tucked under the front passenger mat, and something else in the trunk. That green tarp? It had blood on it, old blood. In the weeks that followed, I gave my statements over and over. They never told me his name, not at first. But 3 months later, while visiting a friend in Salem, I saw his face again. On a news broadcast. His name was Caleb Ross, a former EMT. Went off-grid after being discharged from psychiatric care in 2019. 2 women from Central Oregon had gone missing on remote roads over the past 5 years. One of them was never found. The other, her car was discovered abandoned. Same make, same model, same place I was ambushed. I made it to the cabin the next day against my family's protests. I didn't tell them everything, not at first, just that I had car trouble, that something happened, that I was lucky. But that night, as I stared out at the snowy hills from the upstairs window, I saw red lights again in the distance, faint, flashing. I know it wasn't him. I know he was in custody. But something about those lights made my stomach drop. Something in my bones whispered, he wasn't alone. Christmas is a time of giving, of love, of warmth. But out there, beneath the snowdrifts and frozen roads, there are people who wait for the kind-hearted, the lonely, the unsuspecting. And sometimes, they bring more than just a dead car battery. If this story left your spine tingling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more real horror stories that make your holidays just a little less cheerful. Story number 2. The Last Shift, a Christmas Eve encounter. Christmas Eve, the time of twinkling lights, warm hearths, and joyful gatherings. But not every Christmas ends in peace and presents. Some nights hide something far more sinister. This is a true Christmas Eve nightmare. A story so unsettling, so twisted, it's haunted Riley every December since. Back in 2014, in a tiny, snow-swallowed town called Pine Brook, just outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, an 18-year-old named Riley Summers was working a shift that nobody else wanted. Riley identified as non-binary and was known for being quiet, kind, and just trying to save up for college. That Christmas Eve, they were stuck closing alone at a 24-hour convenience store called Market Town. It was the kind of place you barely noticed during the day and completely forgot about at night. Perched at the end of a dead-end street surrounded by empty warehouses, the store felt like it belonged in a different decade. One with yellowed linoleum floors, flickering lights, and a single row of outdated snacks. Riley's shift had started at 6. By 10:45, the store had been dead quiet for over an hour. The once cheerful Christmas music playing overhead now felt warped and haunting in the silence. The sleigh bells above the door jingled once every so often, probably the wind. Or at least that's what Riley told themselves. At exactly 11:09, something shifted. There was a faint tap on the large front window facing the parking lot. Not the kind of tap that says, "Hey, I'm here." More like the accidental scrape of a zipper or nails. Riley looked up, expecting to see a customer. But instead, they saw a tall figure in a long brown coat, the hood pulled tightly over their head. Their face was mostly obscured in the glow of the street lamp, but something about their posture was off. Unnaturally stiff, like a mannequin someone had posed too hastily. Riley's stomach dropped. The stranger walked through the front door, making the sleigh bells clang loudly. Without saying a word, the man walked straight past the counter, staring dead ahead as if Riley weren't even there. His boots made no sound on the linoleum. He disappeared into the aisles. 10 minutes passed. Riley, glued to the register, couldn't bring themselves to ask if the man needed help. The store remained silent, eerily silent. Then came the tapping. Software. Rhythmic. Intentional. Like someone dragging their fingers across the shelf edges or knocking gently on metal. It came from aisle 3, then aisle 4, then aisle 5. Riley peeked up at the security monitors above, but for some reason, aisle 6, the snack aisle, was black. The feed had gone out. The tapping stopped. A subtle creak echoed from the far end of the store. It sounded like a giggle? Riley stood up slowly. "Sir?" they called out. No response, just movement. Something, or someone, was shifting behind the shelves. Not walking. Crawling. Feeling a mix of duty and dread, Riley stepped around the counter and tiptoed toward the aisles. The silence was so heavy it felt like a blanket made of static. When they turned into aisle 6, no one was there. But then they heard the softest jingle, like sleigh bells again, but this time coming from behind the shelves. Riley pressed closer to the metal racks and dared to peek through the tiny ventilation holes. What they saw made their breath freeze in their throat. 2 wide, unblinking eyes stared right back at them. The face was pressed unnaturally close, as if the man had been waiting, just inches from their own, breathing through the shelf slats. Riley stumbled back in horror. Before they could react, the man darted around the corner and entered the aisle, grinning, giggling, and hopping. Yes, hopping. Not skipping, not jumping. This man was full-on bunny hopping toward Riley, all while giggling like a cartoon character trying to mimic a child. He had a weird lurch to his rhythm, like something was broken in him. Riley backed away quickly, whispering, "No, no, no." But the man followed, never blinking, hopping faster. That's when he spoke for the first time, if you could call it speaking. It was more like singing, off-key and low-pitched. "Found you, little helper. Time to wrap. Time to wrap." Riley turned and ran. They sprinted down the front aisle, breathing so hard they could hardly see. They fumbled for the phone behind the register but dropped it in their panic. When they turned back, the man had stopped. He stood at the other end of the aisle, 20 feet away. His smile had vanished, replaced by something monstrous, rageful. His eyes, once wide and silly, were now sunken and filled with malice. He let out a low growl and bolted toward Riley, this time not hopping, running, like an animal. Riley screamed and sprinted to the back of the store, through the swinging staff door and down the hallway where storage boxes were piled. The back door, thankfully, was propped open slightly for deliveries. They flung it wide and ran into the snow-drenched alley behind the store. They circled around the block, breath fogging in the frigid air, hands shaking as they unlocked the front door of their car. But a terrible realization hit them. They hadn't locked the back door, and the man could still be inside. Something inside Riley refused to just drive off. They had to warn someone. They had to make sure the place wasn't burned down by morning. They crept back toward the store, used their key to re-enter through the front, and locked the door behind them this time. The moment they stepped inside, tap, tap. From deep in the back, tap, tap, tap. Riley grabbed the phone from behind the counter and dialed their manager, Mr. Hutchinson. It rang twice before a groggy voice answered. "Mr. H, someone's inside. He's not right. I think he's still here." "What? Who's inside? What are you talking about?" Tap, tap, tap. The sound grew louder. "I'm leaving. I'm sorry. I can't stay here." And with that, Riley dropped the phone, unlocked the front door, and raced to their car. They never looked back. They didn't wait to see if the man came out. They just drove, heart pounding, tears mixing with the snow falling through their broken window. They never returned to that store again. No one ever caught the man. According to Riley's friend, the store's cameras had mysteriously wiped themselves clean. Not a single frame was recoverable. There was no damage. Nothing was stolen. Just sleigh bells that wouldn't stop jingling on their own for days. Markettown eventually shut down a year later. Locals say it was because of dwindling sales. But Riley knows better. Every year on Christmas Eve, Riley leaves town. They turn off their phone. They don't go near windows. And they don't trust sleigh bells anymore. Because somewhere out there, that hopping man is still looking for his little helper. Sleep tight, and Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching DarkCresset. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share.